The question that we've been asked is, say I have a monthly business expense, like for example, my internet bill that I pay to Rogers Communication. How do I do that in uLaw? Now there are a couple of ways you can do this in uLaw. One would be because it's a monthly expense, you can create an accounts payable vendor and track the invoice as it comes in and track the payment how you do it. Let's say the vendor that we're dealing here is for your internet payment, which is Rogers Communication. So you'd go into contacts and you do a new contact for Rogers. So you'll say contact vendor, okay? And you'll say it's a corporation. You can say Rogers Communication. And you can say Ottawa Rogers. And you can give them an address and create that vendor. Now once you've created the vendor, what you can do is you can go into your accounts and actually, when the invoice comes in via your post, you can create an accounts payable entry for them. The way you would do that, you would click on accounts, you would say action, you would say expense, office expense. Okay, now for example, it would be an utility probably. You can even create your own category here, but for example, now I can say it's utility, and I can say cable payment, invoice number 67. I can choose it as an accounts payable because it's not been paid. Choose Rogers Communication, enter the amount, say it's $100. So the total is 113. With taxes, it becomes 113, and you will do a submit. Once you do a submit, what it happens is it makes an entry into your accounts payable. So if you go to accounts payable, you will see that there'll be an entry there for this voucher that you owe Rogers Communication $113. At some point, say if you decide to pay it, then you can say action, you can do a payment, it'll be a vendor payment. You will choose Rogers Communication, and it'll show you that you owe Rogers $113, so you can select that. Now this is where the method of payment comes into play. How did you pay Rogers? Say you used your RBC credit card to pay Rogers. You can say that's the method of payment. Again, you have to enter the invoice number, and you can say cable payment. Say it was a credit card, enter the reference number, and do payment. Now you would use this method only if you would have a deferred payment. So that is, first you got the invoice by post, you entered it, and then a few days later you decided to actually pay it. Then you see now that there are two entries in accounts payable. The first one where it's a credit entry where you owe Rogers, and the second one is where you actually made the payment via the credit card. Now if you choose to avoid that, and as soon as the bill came in you decided to pay, what you can do in uLaw is you can skip this whole process of accounts payable. You can say action, you'll say pay, you'll say expense, office expense. Again, you'll go through the same thing. You'll choose utility, and you'll say Rogers cable bill for March. You can say $100, and straight away here, rather than doing accounts payable, you can choose your bank account, how you actually paid for it. This is exactly the same process. It will record the payment in utility, but it'll skip the entire accounts payable portion, but just record it as a credit card payment. So if I go to my RBC credit card, I'll now see two. So now in the account of my credit card, it actually shows two ways in which I paid Rogers. One is here. So if I click on this one, it tells me I actually use my credit card to directly pay the utility. And if I click here, it says I actually use my credit card to pay my accounts payable. And if I go to my accounts payable, it will balance out there saying that $113 was the credit that was entered, and then the way it was paid was using the debit card. So to summarize, you can either make an expense payment to accounts payable and then pay it using the payment as a vendor, or you can directly put the payment to your credit card.